Welcome to What You Missed When You Didn't Exist. I am Corbett, and I am 52.
And I'm Lucy, and I'm 23.
Well, that's fine for you then.
I aged, and I graduated.
Yeah, you graduated. You're officially a real teacher at this point.
Woot
The
woot.
real deal.
It's exciting.
It is kind of exciting.
Thinking of the bright future and all of the wonderful things that can come my way.
You're now responsible for teaching the next generation. Good luck.
So fun. Good thing I'm not teaching history class, because that would be so bad.
That'd be fine. Although, this time around, I am going to be dumping a little historical knowledge of something that happened essentially in my lifetime, and technically has happened again several times since then, so it's really going to keep happening. But in 1973, we had an oil crisis in America. Actually, technically, it was the world oil crisis, because there was a war. Hard to believe that a war would ever affect oil, but it does.
Wasn't it another war from the Middle East, too?
It was a war from the Middle East. The Arab nation was fighting against Israel. And I know it's never been heard of before.
But it happened.
And America was backing the Israeli people because I guess we got to back somebody.
They had the money.
The Arab nation had the money because they had the oil. And they put an embargo on America when they went to war, and America was backing them at a certain point. Now, this was also another event that was happening at the exact same time that kind of screwed things up for America, I think. Well, I don't know if it would screw things up or not. Watergate was happening at the same time, and that's another thing that we'll cover in another show, I'm sure. But the president at the time was Richard Nixon. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he did some stuff and got into trouble. I know you've never heard of a president getting into trouble, but hey, it happens. So exactly. Watergate was happening at the exact same time, and Nixon was pretty distracted by what was happening. And I believe it was Henry Kissinger who was in charge of foreign affairs at the moment. And when the war started, he didn't react fast enough. So the Saudi king, he basically put a tariff on everything or an embargo on everybody. So there was no oil for anybody. He didn't trust the Soviets, and he didn't trust us, and he didn't trust the Jewish people, which was kind of like basically he didn't trust anybody.
Okay, trust issues.
he put a embargo on pretty much the entire world. That triggered a massive problem with gas, and we are a country that is very reliant on gasoline.
True.
Other European nations and stuff, they have bicycles, they have stuff to get around. It's well, I guess we can't run our tractors, but we still have horses and wagons or something, I guess. Most people had ways around it except for America, which was very, very hurt by it.
Yeah, America's lacking in their public transportation system usage, I feel like.
Well, it still would have affected that to a certain degree.
Yeah, it's true.
But this is when people were waiting in lines at the gas pump. Prices rose 43%, going from an average gallon of gas costing 38 cents nationwide to 55 cents.
Wow, imagine.
just to give you some realization, by $1974 in today, that would be like it going from $2.35 to $3.40.
I mean, that happened. Now we're at $4 now.
Well, we'll get to the future in a minute, but right now we're still in the past. Let's talk about this. So anyway, it was 50 cents a gallon everywhere, and that was crazy. I mean, I honestly, in Texas at the time, I remember it being 25 cents a gallon or something like that. I remember the numbers really specifically because it was when I could kind of understand those numbers have meaning, and I could read the numbers. As a kid, I mean, I was a little kid at the time, but I could read those numbers. I knew what they meant as far as numeric value, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And I got, it's a quarter, so it costs a quarter for gas. Well, I didn't realize it was a quarter a gallon and how many gallons fit into a tank and how many things go on. But eventually I learned that later on in life, as we all do. But we all do run on gas, and we travel everywhere because it's a big old country we live in, and we love driving. In America,
do we love driving, or do we just have too much land?
We have a lot of land. I don't know. I enjoy driving. I feel like I find myself enjoying the drive, but I also kind of hate planes and trains. Well, actually, I don't mind trains, but they are expensive. Boy, have you ever tried to book a train? They are
I
pricey.
can't say that I've tried to book a train ride recently.
I got some, but I like cars because I can get out and go when I want. I can stop where I want. I can do side treks and kind of, oh, that's something neat. I think I'll drive over there. So it's not a point to point and I make this thing happen. That is probably the ultimate American experience. If you are out of
Mm,
the country, America is a place to go driving. You have full control. You have the ability and the open road, the wind in your hair. It's great. That is the American
okay.
experience.
As someone that's taken many a road trip with you, I would say you are not about the journey. You are solely about the destination.
Well, get over it. we're talking about the thing that gets us there, and that's the gas. Gas.
I'm just telling the listeners out there that you've got this, glorified road trip experience, and I'm just telling them all that it's fake. Because
I
you are
stopped.
not about the journey.
I stopped at a lot. As with you as kids, I stopped at a lot of places.
Well, yeah,
I
because
always
we
had to.
had to pee. That's a different issue. It wasn't a let's go see the giant ball of yarn. It's a oh geez, someone has to use the bathroom. Let's go try again.
No, if I was wanting to be mean, I would have had to do it out the window. So don't give me guff over that.
Ugh, whatever, dude. But yes, now we're about gas.
So anyway,
And
gas became a huge issue. After that, they made a strategic nation oil reserve. They made a field of oil, basically, that is reserved for in times of crisis, in times of war. If we have to mobilize, there is an oil reserve that's saved. That was created after this oil crisis. A lot of other limitations were probably lifted, and I don't know if they should have been because there were caps to keep the gas from rising too fast, too quickly. Because they could have
oh,
just like had it gone to outrageous amounts. Imagine if it was like $4; it'd be crazy.
yeah.
But they
Mm-hmm.
could have. But there were federal regulations at the time that stopped it from going too far because the people that were selling the gas were like, I only have so much. I only got so much, and that's why people were lining up at the pump because they knew they
Mm,
had to get their gas. That's when people started realizing if you drive a little slower, you can conserve gas because it won't take as much to get where you got to go.
yeah.
That's also what helped trigger the federal speed limit because you had to
Oh,
have the song I Can't Drive 55. In the United States, 55 became the maximum speed limit that anybody could go anywhere
wow.
because it was costing too much to have these cars driving this crazy, crazy speeds. And that was really frustrating for a lot of people out west because out west is a lot of nothing.
That's true.
There's like miles and miles and miles of nothing. And you could go 1,000 miles an hour and you probably still would notice it takes forever to get anywhere. But a lot of that kind of came out of it. And in the end, the Arab nations lifted the embargo. Oh, actually, the stock market took a big dip at the time, too, if I remember right. And that caused a bunch of problems. But I think that after that, the U.S. realized we were dependent on gas a lot more than we thought.
Yeah.
That's when people started pushing for economic vehicles. The VW Bug was a big winner during that because you could get so much more gas mileage out of your little tiny car. And the
Yeah, that's
big
true.
guzzling cars took too much. So that was a big deal in the 80s. People started trying to maximize the amount of mileage you would get per gallon. And that's why we pay attention to that now. How much mileage do you get per gallon in your car? That makes it
Yeah.
valuable. Because
Yeah,
if you
that's
need
true.
horsepower, you get a truck.
Psh, who needs horsepower anymore?
I don't know, people who haul stuff like horses.
Yeah, I guess that's an American thing to do.
But because of that, we fixed all the problems. We don't need gas anymore, and everything's great.
Hey, kind of. With all these electric cars.
Or
or or we didn't fix everything and there's more crisis after crisis.
there was a few more like oil jabs from here and there. Well, I don't know. What's your take? Because I don't think you even realized there was a crisis.
Well, in the 70s, no. Can't say that I, knew that off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really know about any of the other crises that happened recently, I guess.
Oh, actually, one more crisis, just to throw this in there, because I remember
Yeah.
this, and it was a big deal because I lived in Texas.
Hmm.
They were planning on canceling Sunday football
Whoa. Because of the oil crisis?
because it took so many people to get to the stadiums for the big NFL stuff. And
Whoa.
in Texas, or in the South in general, people were like, "What? No football on Sunday? What, are we not going to go to church either?" So, you can mess with gas, but you cannot mess with football.
You
Sorry.
can't mess with football. That's funny. That's very Texas.
That's very true. But you weren't familiar with any of those crises as far
Not
as.
really. I think the last time there was a crisis that happened, I remember gas went up to like $4 where we were living.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that was at the point that I started paying for gas. And I was like, oh my gosh, why is it so expensive? But I don't really remember anything that happened with that. But I think it was the same thing, right? Like it was just Obama was talking to, I don't know, the Middle East, and then they got upset again. Maybe it was China. I don't know.
Yeah, it always deals with somebody else. If one single country pulls out of delivering gasoline to us or oil
Hmm.
to us, we don't suffer. It's like less than 15% of our total. Apparently, we
Yeah.
dispersed our total from everybody.
Yeah. Well, because we've also got, all the states have like major oil rigs now.
Yeah.
Alaska and Texas and Wyoming, and I feel like there's another one,
I
but I
think
don't
anywhere
really
you
know.
go, there's going to be oil. Just dig down.
Yeah, so I feel like we've become more, kind of dependent or independent in that regard.
Well, like you said, there is certainly more electric cars and more alternative cars, I guess.
Oh, definitely. I mean, well, people are also trying to be more eco conscious because we've got the ozone layer that's threatening to split apart. So we're trying to save the planet by trying to save the planet before it dies,
Eh,
even though it's dying anyways.
honestly, I will say this: the planet will be fine. We'll be gone, but the planet's going to be fine.
I mean, yeah, to
It'll
some
get rid of its
extent.
problem before we ever know anything about it.
Yeah, that's very true. So everyone's doing the electric car, but the thing about having the electric car is you need electricity, and in instances where power keeps going out and people don't have the means to pay their electric bills or
Mm,
like any of that, that can be costly. And so I think a lot of people like the idea of the hybrid because then you have both gas and electricity, so it's a longer span
well,
between like filling up your gas tank and having to charge your car.
well, it's like our energy options too. The more we diversify our energy options, the more we get the use out of everything.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could see that in, I don't know, we watched it in Robert Downey Jr.'s Dream Cars.
Mm,
I think it's on Max. It was on Max or something.
mm-hmm.
But Robert Downey Jr., I didn't realize he's so energy conscious. And so he takes all these like vintage classic cars. So all the gas guzzlers that you were talking about that we got rid of, he has them, but he takes them and restores them into either electric. I think he took one out of sunflower oil or like
Mm,
another kind of oil that like
yeah,
those vegetable oils that are easy to make and not as bad for the planet,
yeah.
or like he just revamps them and makes them more eco-conscious, but they still have that classic look and that classic style to them, which is what people like most about classic cars anyways. No one's like, I need a car that will guzzle up 30 gallons of gas in 10 miles, because
Mm.
that's ridiculous. I think we're always going to run out of other things. There's a lot of fossil fuels, but we're also trying to save the planet. I mean, I feel like I've seen the opposite because when COVID happened and we were driving down and we were like the one of the first people on a road trip when COVID happened and
Mm,
gas went down to like $1, I
yeah.
was astounded. I could not believe that gas was ridiculously cheap.
Well, once the demand was dropped to nothing.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We had generated enough demand that they were trying to pump out and keep up with it. Now, soon they started stockpiling, and then it just became the point of, oh, we have too much, and we got to get rid of this. We got to dump the price. But then nobody was driving because, everybody had to stay home.
Yeah, but everyone realized that gas was so cheap that they were like thinking that they should stockpile on it. And so I remember watching TikTok videos of people filling up their truck beds with gasoline so that way they could just stockpile it. But they didn't realize how to line their truck bed properly, so it just kept leaking out of the back of their truck.
Yeesh.
But at that point, gas was $1, so they didn't really think anything of it. But oh my gosh. People, take care of your gas and your cars.
Yeah.
Jeez. I think there will continue to be oil crises until the world ceases to exist.
I mean, to be fair, if there's a resource, it's eventually going to run out. I mean, even like, oh well, there's solar and it'll never run out. Well, technically it will. It just takes 100,000 years, and the sun's gonna burn itself out.
Yeah, the sun's got some time to kill.
But we'll all be pretty dead by then, so I don't think we're gonna notice. But everything is a limited resource. Everything. The wind, the air we breathe, the oils we use, the coal we dig up, everything eventually has a limitation.
Exactly.
I know they were using like corn. Like corn is something they produce in massive quantities to make like an oil-based something or other that runs in cars. Like that's something, I guess. But everything can run out, and to use it responsibly and not become dependent too much on any one thing, I think is pretty smart.
Definitely. It's easy to become a jack of all trades and just find multiple resources to draw from. That's how you win in Settlers of Catan. You never win by the monopoly. Everyone knows that.
Perfect example.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's played Settlers of Catan. Or Catan, however anyone says it.
I will say I bet the oil crisis probably led to a lot of the downfall or helped trigger a lot of the downfall of the Nixon situation, because everybody was generally like, oh, he had some recordings, but what? I've got to pay 50 cents for gas? That's crazy.
Man, 50 cents for gas. That would be a dream.
$2 for gas would be a dream. That's beside the point.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, it's 2.50 down here.
Is it? That's still $4 up here.
That's what you get for living in the boonies.
You gotta live in. Well, so the funny thing is, Wyoming is an oil state. I don't understand why they're paying $4, yet for some reason Texas is an oil state and they're paying $2.
I think you have to dig up the oil and then go refine it, and then from the refinery they bring it back to Wyoming. Kind of like how with the beef, you have to raise the beef there, but then you go butcher it and send it to somebody else, and then they send it back to you as ground beef, and that's why it's expensive. So you're just paying shipping prices.
We're paying for shipping prices. That's probably true. I feel like I'm always paying shipping prices. That's fine.
Man. This has been what you missed when you didn't exist.
Hey, that's my thing.
This has been what you missed when you existed, but I didn't exist. But that's not as catchy of a title.
I guess not. Okay, well, future's all for you, so enjoy.
Thanks. I'll take it well. I'll teach my future students about the oil crisis and tell them that they need to fix the world.
Yep, and they shall.